but you also then have to implement these changes. Like you have to implement a decision. You have to implement some faith. You have to implement taking a small action every single day, whether that was you reading that book for school for 15 seconds a day, whether that's a gratitude practice, whether that's making sure that you jump on the Stairmaster every day, like whatever the hell it is, like you're not going to decision and faith losing 15 pounds or, getting the business or playing in the event or dancing with the stars. You've got to have a combo of the three.
Hey, Christina, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Hey, when I was doing research for the show, there was something that we have in common that I have to bring up because I'm just so interested because my experience was so unique, and that is dancing with the stars. Tell me about that experience and how that went for you.
I love it. There were so many things you could have said right there. I was so interested
I know.
in which one it was. I was like, oh, where's he going with this? What do we have in common? Dancing with the Stars. I wasn't gonna say that was gonna be it. But yeah, I did a local Dancing with the Stars appearance actually last year during COVID. I signed up before COVID started, and then we actually turned it into a bit of a virtual experience instead of like there wasn't a massive crowd. But we practiced and everything in person. It was a lot of fun. We did it for a local charity here in Arkansas. And I think I ended up finishing third, since everything was like not in person. I know I didn't win. It was based upon the money raised and then the dancing as well. So we raised a good amount of money. I think I raised close to $30,000 for my team. And then the dancing experience was a lot of fun. But yeah, where did you do yours?
I did mine in the Naperville area, and I wanted to dig into the process of that. Did you practice a lot for it?
We were only allowed to practice a certain amount of times. So we only had 10 sessions because every person was only able to practice like the same amount. Like they didn't want someone practicing like 50 times and one person practicing 2.
Yeah, well, I know you're real competitive, and we'll dive into that. But for mine, there wasn't rules around how much you could practice, and they gave you 10 lessons, and I took 80.
Dude, you must have been amazing. Yeah, no, I wasn't that good. I took 10.
I'm not a good dancer at all, so I had to overcompensate by putting in the work, but I ended up winning it because I recreated the Dirty Dancing Patrick Swayze scene, and I mixed in some swing dancing, and it was this whole routine. I'll have to send it to you, but it was like 5 minutes long, and I was the last one to go. I had the crowd involved at the end, but it was one of those things where I'm like, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And it was a ton of fun. I still don't know how to dance, but it was it was something I could look back on and watch that video 10 years from now and be proud of for sure.
That is so cool. Could you recreate that video from today?
Maybe some of it for sure. It was like 3 years ago, I want to say. Cool. But yeah, it was cool. So definitely when I see people that have done that, because the one thing, and I mean, you probably have more practice than I do in terms of you playing golf, but when you're dancing in front of someone, especially a large crowd, like your body does weird things and you're not used to it because it's not like you just can control your voice or part of your body. I mean, your whole body's moving. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the adrenaline is high. It's like the first tee vibes where you're just like, the adrenaline is rushing. And I used to, when I used to be on the first tee or whatever it was, when in college, I was called the Intimidator because I had like a ton, like I looked like I was ice cold on the outside. Like I was just like calm as a cucumber. Inside, I was like absolute mush. And like by the time I hit the first drive, they knew I was mush. It would go far right or far left or whatever it is. But yeah, it's amazing when the adrenaline kicks in. It's not like practicing for sure.
So I wanted to dive into a little bit of the golf side and how that parallels into confidence, because one of the things that I realized, I don't know why it's taken me so long to realize, the stress of just a golf swing, or when you're playing golf. I was watching the U.S. Open in my house a few weeks ago, and it was down to a couple strokes, as it always is. When you are in that position and you are playing and you are literally like one stroke away from winning or losing, how do you cope with that? And what have you learned over time that applies to like everyday life in terms of that confidence that you need internally to be able to make that under that stress?
Oh, I love it. We could go in so many different directions. So first of all, I was never in the U.S. Open, so I have no idea what that stress would be like.
Well, something similar. I know you
No.
you were on a TV show though, so that had to be stressful, and I want to dive into that in a little bit too.
Absolutely, 110%. So I totally agree there. I think one of the things that people don't mention quite often, and I think is really important, is like being there, like being there numerous times. I think that really helps. Like the more you can put yourself in a situation, the more confident you become. I always say confidence is built oftentimes on doing hard things. The more hard things that you can do, the more confident you are that you will be able to do more hard things. So like even your Dancing with the Stars story, like, I mean, you did that. That's nerve-wracking. That's hard. You're a little bit scared. So the next time something is proposed to you, you have a better chance of handling the stress a little bit more. But, for me on the golf course, nowadays I play golf better now than I probably did when I was grinding it out, practicing, 6 hours a day or whatever it was, because I do believe that, there's not as much stress on it now, which is obviously a lot more helpful, but I enjoy it a lot more. And I think that is, if you can get your mindset into the frame of this is like a very enjoyable situation. Like if you're walking down the fairway and you have a chance to win the US Open, yes, you're going to be nervous. But also, too, I think it's really, really important to remember that, like, chances are you've worked your whole entire life for this opportunity, for this situation. And, like, when you can come back to that and remember that, like, whoa, like millions of people would give anything to be in this position, it takes off a little bit of the stress. And you just kind of go, holy cow, like, how blessed am I to be in this situation that, like, 99% of people will never experience in their life. I think that, like, if you can get into that, I believe that gratitude will change your life, but if you can get in that gratitude mindset in that exact moment and train yourself to do it in those high pressure situations, even like yourself at Dancing with the Stars, like, dude, like that's so incredible that so many people would want that opportunity. So if you can get into the gratitude, it'll calm you down and make you realize that, like, wow, I'm so blessed to be in this situation.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense, but I have to think about the other side of it. So there's the one side where you're practicing, like I had the luxury to practice as much as I could pack in a time frame to be able to compete in that dance competition. When you're golfing, you kind of have that same ability to practice a ton, right? And often it's a combination of a lot of factors that are going to get you to the US Open, talent being one of them, practice, work ethic, confidence. But you were featured and you were on this show called the Big Break Series, and you were faced with challenges on that series. It was a reality TV show. And in those challenges, some of them you had never faced before. So when you're facing similar challenges in life, when you haven't had the luxury to practice what you were about to do, how do you kind of gain confidence or bring out the confidence in something that you haven't necessarily practiced? Because we're all faced with things on a day-to-day basis that we need to execute on. And maybe if there's a fun story around that too that wasn't shown, because I saw a few clips that I want to even dive a little bit deeper into, but I just wanted to get your thoughts there.
Jeez Louise, look at you doing your homework. That's ages ago, decades ago. I think
it's pretty good TV. It's good.
It was horrible television. Are you kidding me? No, it's horrible. The first thing I'll reference is that, like, I'm definitely not the same human that I was when I did that, 2014 or 2000, pardon me, 2007 was the first one. My God, that's like 14 years ago. I'm definitely not the same human being that I was then. And I probably, if I put myself in those situations now, I would definitely handle them completely different. But going back to your initial question, which was like, how do you handle something that you've never been, faced with before on Big Break? Like I had never, my first season, so I was on 3 reality shows for Golf Channel, and I was never faced with any of those challenges before. They're definitely like random golf challenges, but I think again, you're putting yourself in a situation where you may have not done that exact challenge before, but you have done something else previous. So the first time that I came to Big Break, I did the Big Break in Hawaii. Well, I had just come off going to my very first LPGA tour school. So I went from one hard situation to the next hard situation. And so I think I did the first one, like I went to the first situation. It wasn't something that I had done before. I had just graduated college, and I was actually one of the blessed people and to make it to final stage of LPGA in my very first try. I think that actually part of that, me getting that opportunity, was the fact that it was my first time getting that opportunity to ever go to Q school. I think it was actually like a really good thing, the fact that like I had never been before, so I actually had no expectations of what I should do. Like I played really well. Like I went in and I was like, well, I never expected to like actually get through to first stage, let alone second stage, let alone to final stage. Like I had zero expectations, so I think that's actually somewhat helpful. And even going into Big Break, how I actually got on that show was kind of hilarious. I started golf very late in life. Like I started actually, like the first time I ever touched a club, I was like 18 years old. I went to college. I was an All-American, turned professional right after going to college. And so I didn't have like all of the bad thoughts, and I didn't have all of the experience around knowing like what an actual Big Break experience was. Like my college coach, she's like, oh, you're in Arizona, you should try out for this show on Golf Channel called Big Break. And at the time it had probably done 14 or 15 seasons. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go and try out and, hit a few shots, make a few comments, whatever, never thought anything of it. And sure enough, I get it. And so I do think that was like a blessing too, the fact that I had no idea. And I'd really never watched the show. And so when I went to Big Break, when I went to Hawaii right after tour school, I went into it not really knowing what to expect, but knowing that like I always have, and I don't know if every person is born this way, but I've always had a deep like belief inside myself way before I had, the confidence that I have today, is that I was always willing to try. And I think that confidence is like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. But I've always had this like knowing deep within inside myself that I was always willing to try something. I'm always willing to fail. I'm always willing to get my butt kicked. I don't know if we can cuss on this podcast or not, but always willing.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. If you've done any homework on me, you know that I cuss. Yeah. But yeah, so, I've always been willing to do that. And so I think for myself, just like willing to go to Hawaii and have no idea what I was up against or what it was actually going to look at. But I know for damn sure I was going to be like the person who would lose her arm before she lost, and I think that's like the grittiness that I think some people have and some people don't. You can perhaps have it in different ways, but for myself, it was like I will go out in flames before I want to go out.
So on that show, and I know this took place like over a decade ago, there was a period in there, a clip that I watched where
you told the girl to choke.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to set that up for a second? You got to set that up because I can see it because you're so competitive. It's obvious, right? And as a competitor, you want to win. And at that point, you had nothing to do except hope that someone else would miss the shot. Can you set that up for a second? Because then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So like I, again, went into that television show. I was so new in the golf industry. No one knew who I was. Some of those, every single one of the girls that I think there was 12 of us, every single one of those girls who had been in the golf scene for a while. I was like the fresh out of college, like never played junior golf, never did nothing really. And so I go there and, on reality shows, something that they don't tell you, that every reality show does, in my opinion, and I believe this is true, is that they have like a cast. So like in their brains, when they're casting, they're like, okay, I want the jock. I want the, whatever. I want this person.
Antagonist, yeah.
Yeah, the antagonist,
Yeah.
whatever it is. They chose me as the dumb blonde. Like they even said 100%. They're like, this chick is going to be the ditzy blonde. They obviously did not do their freaking homework because that was 100% not me. And so like when that show kind of got started, they were like, oh, damn, we're going to like use this because this girl's competitive as shit. She's going to rub these girls the wrong way. Like she is not the dumb blonde. And so they kind of like flip the script a little bit. And it's definitely 100% not scripted in any regard. They can't, but they put certain situations to cause certain drama. And I 100% said that. Like I 100% agree. And I do still believe to this day, if I was a dude, it would not have even got on camera. But the fact that I, at the time looked the way that you look and you are on an all-girls show. This girl was, 100 feet away from me, but we were obviously mic'd up. It's a reality show. And I had just hit a shot and I like under my breath. But again, I'm on camera. I'm like, man, I hope she chokes. And like, because I didn't want to go home, but they caught it on camera. And then they started using it in every trailer, right? And then they showed the clip that I said I wanted this girl to choke to all the other girls in camp or whatever that night at the hotel. And so all of a sudden, I'm just like this raging mean bitch, but I'm truly not. I'm just like literally the most competitive person ever. And I'll be honest, I don't know however many other people would probably not go, yeah, I really hope
Everyone
I
would.
can choke right now. Like, you know what I mean? But if I was a dude, it wouldn't have been shown. But it was obviously, since I was a girl and I said I wanted this girl to choke, it was on the trailer and it was shown every single week.
Yeah, and of course it's TV and they have to find something like that to use. But it actually like brings up my question though, is like, is there a fine line between being confident and then overconfident where you become or can be perceived as rude or pompous or something like that? How do you balance those two lines?
100%. And I love that you asked the question because do I believe Christina 14 years later would actually say that? Probably not, because I understand now that like really it's just a game against myself. At the time, I was so concerned about like the external validation. I was so concerned about like what people were going to think if I got kicked off early and all of the things. I ended up like beating the girl, but like I now and I now know that like I obviously don't want her to choke. Do I want to win? Of course I do, but I love to be like the person who like stiffed it so close and like that's how I won. So, perspective and growth is everything. I do think that like there is a difference between cockiness and confidence for sure, 110%. And I definitely do believe I am the type of person who rides the line. I actually have, in my coaching business now, I actually have a client who has told me that before she hired me, she could not stand me. She's like, you rub me completely the wrong way. And I rub a lot of people the wrong way. I am the first person to say that I definitely have a tendency to rub people the wrong way. Once people get to know me, they truly actually probably love me. But all that to be said is that I do believe that oftentimes if I rub someone wrong in some regard, most times it's because they want the confidence that I have. I don't believe I am cocky, but I am very confident in my confidence. And I think most people actually want that. Most people want to have the firm, unwavering belief, which I do have. And so I think it can come off and rub people the wrong way. But I think that like I have, strong, very strong beliefs on why I believe what I believe. And I think that's actually appealing to a lot of people because I think most people waver. And that to me creates, kind of like not as
Doubt.
much confidence. Doubt. Yeah.
Right,
It creates a doubt in someone. When a person is very strong in what they believe and how they believe it, that creates confidence in another person.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So before we get into more with regards to what someone can do with confidence, I think people also are brought up on in different environments, and they're naturally born with maybe confidence. I don't think everyone just learns it, right? I think you're there's your genes, and there's your parents, and there's everything that you've been taught and how you've been brought up as a kid to help your confidence. But before we get into what people can do, how did you go from being a golf pro to becoming a confidence coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Really great question. So it's, very organic, to be honest with you. So most people looked at my golf career and my life. I always kind of tell this quick story that, I was 18 years old and two things happened to me. One, I got good at golf, and two, I got good looking in the exact same summer. So I got like and people laugh, but it's true. And in that exact moment when I turned like 18 and had that external validation, it almost became a drug to me. I was like, damn, this is awesome. So how do I get more of this drug that's just like, you're so great, you're so pretty, you're so successful, you're so this, like college scholarships, job opportunities, all the things. So my thought process is I get better at golf and I get better looking. So for me at the time, it was like get skinnier. And so for basically like a 10-year period, I was so driven by external motivation, external validation, that I was like in a very horrible place. I had an eating disorder. I hated myself. I did not like what I was doing because I was playing golf because I was told, oh, you play golf, you'll be happy. You'll play golf, your life will be amazing. You look a certain way, you're going to get XYZ job, be hanging around with these people and make all this money. Well, when I was about 27 years old, I had kind of got to the place that enough is enough. And I was at kind of my rock bottom. And that's when I dove into self-development. That's when I dove into coaching, mastermind therapy, hiring, all the things. I listened to every podcast. At the time there were more like YouTube videos. I read every book. And I basically changed myself for probably about a 3-year period. I was just so involved with the mindset and the confidence and the self-development. And people started coming to me and asking me like, hold on, how did you go from where you were to where you are now? And that's really what I became so passionate about, was helping people go from, feeling without a purpose, feeling a lack of confidence, feeling, like they don't really know what they want in their lives, to living a life that they're absolutely obsessed with. And I will tell you now, I am more obsessed with my life now than I have ever been in my life. And it's because I have taken the tools and the strategies that I help other people with to fully live in their purpose. And so how did my business actually come about? It's because it was just a very organic experience. And I just understood that like the golf thing, even though it was a beautiful time in so many regards, it was definitely not in alignment with me. And being able to transition from where I was to where I am now has been one of the hardest, greatest gifts of my life.
Well, I'm really happy for the transition, and you seem to be in a great place. And what's interesting is that people don't often understand or see what's going inside, or what's happening inside someone, and the struggles that they're having. They're seeing you and you're a golf pro and you're good looking and all of these good things, but internally you may be struggling with something. And I don't think that is dissimilar to a lot of people, whether they could be successful in business, then maybe they're going through depression. I mean, you see this happen with actors and musicians and all of this stuff. But before we unpack even more of that, you said you were diving into a bunch of books and podcasts. Was there any aha moments or books or podcasts that you found that really kind of got you thinking about this in a different way?
Yeah, I think one of the best books that I could probably recommend to someone, if they deal with like, perhaps not feeling good enough. And I think a lot of people have that, is The Gifts of Imperfection. It was one of like the great books in the beginning. And then for me, I found my faith. I kind of skipped over that, but for me, I kind of hit my rock bottom, and I didn't come from a any type of religious background whatsoever. But for me, when I was kind of at my lowest low, I was like, okay, deuces, I can't do this by myself. And that's really when I came into my faith of just like God, universe, source, whatever I needed. I didn't know what that was at the time. I just needed something, greater than myself. And so it was a combination of, putting myself around really good humans, people I was like, wait a minute, these people have like sometimes less than me, and they're so fucking happy. Like, how is that possible? Like, what magic voodoo do y'all have? And so, being around certain people was really helpful for me. Investing in certain programs, like I invested in masterminds, I hired coaches, early on, I went to seminars and all the things. But, The Gift of Imperfection, I think, was a really good book. I became obsessed with like a Tony Robbins, and I YouTubed every like Simon Sinek, every like Chris Harder, Lewis Howes. Like back in the day, there was just like so many people that were like had this growth mindset that I was just watching and listening to their stuff and starting to like, go to their events and hire them and be around them. And then even personally, like, oftentimes when I help people, I say that there's a time in life where it's almost like a very lonely spot when you're changing your life, because you have to like release like who you used to be and who you're becoming. And in that middle ground, there's kind of like this lonely time, because you can no longer surround yourself with the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and you haven't yet found the people that are going to be the best version for you. So, go to where those events are. Now we live in the age of social media, like follow all those people. That's super helpful. Like, literally be a sponge. I remember on the golf course one time, and this was like before I even dove into self-development, but I remember I was at this golf tournament, and I had the privilege of walking around with, a lot of great athletes. And Paul Azinger said to me one time, he said, be a sponge. Be an absolute sponge. Be around the people that you want to be around. Be a sponge. Take from them what you want and leave the rest. And I think even Arnold Palmer, I think maybe it was Jack, but one of those guys said, like, learn all of the best things from the best people, but leave all the things that they're not so good at. So just take all of like the best practices from the best people in the world. And I think that that's kind of what I was doing when I was, listening to all of the some podcasts in the beginning, but mostly YouTube videos and like reading books. I probably have over 1,000 books upstairs in my closet. Like I've actually showed that on my social media before, because like in the beginning, I just needed to consume every ounce and put in all of the things that were like I needed to hear and replace all of the bullshit, basically.
Yeah. Do you remember like back in the day when you were digging through that and you started implementing some of the things you learned, like any kind of pivotal moment when you're like, this is working, or just learning something new and just feeling enlightened in a different way? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any specific stories, but like even like kind of getting over that's a great question, by the way. I've never been asked that. Even probably getting over my like eating disorder, like kind of getting to the place that like I knew I had to put in a different habit. So like what was I going to replace that habit with? And like what thoughts was I going to replace with the old habits? Like how do I stop myself from doing the same habit that I had done for so many years? How do you replace that with a new habit? And I think like when I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, like this isn't like as controlling in my life anymore, and having better communication with my husband. I've been with my husband for, God, do the math. It's 18 years, even before we were married, obviously. But just the communication with him and like understand, like even those aha moments that I'll be like, oh my God, this used to be like an absolute train wreck. And look at us communicating. Look at us like not making that, like, just little things like
Yeah.
that. Or like, saying no to things that I used to probably say yes to due to, feeling like I should. One thing that I help clients with all the time is like, quit shoulding on yourself, right? Like sometimes you have to just like be so selfish in the beginning of that journey because you're just trying to like change a lot of habits. So I think, just like small little things like being like, damn, that train wreck didn't go as bad as the last train wreck.
Yeah, yeah. I heard that should. I think Tony Robbins maybe. I don't know who the first person was that said that, but I definitely heard that from Tony Robbins before. Don't should all over yourself.
Yeah, it's been
It's
said
a
a
good
thousand
one.
times. It's obviously not my
Yeah.
line, but
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
good though.
true though. It's so true. Do you know how many people live their lives, especially women, shitting on themselves all day long? Like, I should do this, I should do that, I should look this way, I
Yeah.
should do this with the kids. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, when you shit on yourself all day, you feel like shit.
So now you're a confidence coach, and you talk to clients on a daily basis. What do people get wrong aside from shooting on themselves? Is there another like common theme?
Yeah, yeah, it's super interesting. So yeah, confidence and success coach, and I've worked with, hundreds of people over the years now, and I'm feeling really blessed to be able to do that. But I think the common theme there is the fact that most people just need to keep doing things over and over again and believe that they have the purpose and that no one else has it figured out. And that like the number one way to have success is just knowing that like if you do not quit, you will be successful. And quit fucking worrying about what every other Tom, Dick, and Harry have to say about it. Like the most successful people in the world are the people that like literally will never quit. My podcast is called Decide It's Your Turn, the Decide It's Your Turn podcast. And one of the best interviews, he's a good friend of mine. It's the only podcast he's ever done. His name is Jamie Johnson. And if you listen to country music, he's got one of the
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
I
In
know.
Colors, like one of the number one songs of all time. He said something on my podcast that I think was just like, and my husband still quotes it to this day. And I make fun of him. Today is actually his birthday, funny enough. But anyway, all that
Happy birthday.
yeah, exactly. Happy birthday, Jamie. Anyway, all that to be said is he said this quote, and I thought it was just super, super helpful. So, like when he was in Nashville and he was just trying to make it, he said, when quitting is not an option, everything else is. And I think that most people don't have that mentality. And I think the most successful people in the world have that mentality. Whether they understand that they have that mentality or not, like I know for a fact, like the sky is blue, I will never not figure it out. Like I have so much belief and confidence, whether it's in my business, my marriage, my relationships, my personal life. Doesn't mean that I'm not fail. Doesn't mean that I'm not taking some bumps. Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna, everyone's favorite word now, pivot. It doesn't mean those things. But I know for a fucking fact there is no chance in hell I'm going to fail because I will not quit. And that, like, to me, once you kind of like, and once I can help my clients understand that, and like when they have that mentality, oh man, everything's gravy. We can always figure everything out because quitting is not an option.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and that's how I built and sold businesses. My catalyst was becoming a father when I was 20 years old and getting a job, and I was like, okay, I cannot quit. So it forced me into this whole new realm of my life, and before that, I wasn't even thinking about those things. I was just some idiot kid, and then all of a sudden now I'm forced to take care of a child. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the best of this situation. And that's the other thing that I learned is whatever you're doing, try to be the best at it, or try and get out of it in a way, or grow out of it. Not necessarily like just get out of it, but grow out of it. So like in my case, I was working on the assembly line for 5 years, building cars like a human robot, putting myself through school, graduating magna cum laude, because I read 15 seconds at a time for 5 years. Like it took me that long to graduate school. And that was a stair step. That was a climb to the next level. And then that next level, I had to tackle a whole different set of obstacles. And it's just because I just didn't want to quit. And I took the same principles and I was like, hey, I'm going to sign up for this dance competition to go back to it. As silly as that is. And I'm like, I'm going to take the same principles. I know I'm not super talented. I can't figure things out fast, but I know I'm not going to be outworked. And I know that the only way for me to win this thing is for me to outwork my competitors. And I outworked most of them 10x. You know what I mean? Because everyone's taking 10 lessons. I'm taking 80. So it's
so
I totally agree.
So interesting that you said that, because I have said 100 times the reason why I even played golf at the level that I did, which definitely wasn't the highest level in the world, but it was because I outworked everyone. I have zero talent, even in this business. Like, I think I'm pretty successful in my business. I work harder than most people. I'm willing to go when everyone else is like stopping. I'm willing to double down. COVID, perfect example. COVID, my business like skyrocketed. Want to know why? Because I was doubling down when everyone else was watching Netflix.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's so funny you say that. Just another thing we have in common. So when I was starting my first business, which was a digital marketing agency, I was relearning to code, and my wife would be next to me watching Bravo, Real Housewives, and I would have headphones on, and I was literally coding. So I was next to her, and she's like, "Why are you always working?" I'm like, "This is what I do for fun. This is what you do for fun, right?" But I'm not disjointed from her. Yes, we don't have the same thing in common. Of course, I learned a little bit about the housewives through osmosis, but so that was a little plus. But at the same time, it got me through things. So when people also, just not to get on a tangent, multitasking too has a purpose at times. And the purpose is, if you're doing something mundane or you can be doing something more productive, like doing dishes as an example, put in your headphones, listen to something, right? If you are driving in a car, same thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're not driving or you're not doing your household chores or your lists. Like, you can do two things at once. Now, that being said, when you're in a conversation with someone, you should be focused on that conversation and be present. So there's a time and a place, but I just wanted to throw that tip out there, because I feel like multitasking, like it's this binary thing where it's like, you should not do that, but there's actually a place for it.
Yeah, I love it. I actually interviewed a guy named Jay Papasan. He's the author of the One Thing book. And, I remember reading that book. So I'm a big Stairmaster person. I used to literally I changed my life on the Stairmaster for sure. But I used to literally, I was reading this book for I obviously wanted to read the book before I interviewed him. So I was reading the One Thing book on the Stairmaster, taking notes and listening at the same time. And I was like, oh, wow, this kind of goes against the whole entire friggin' book.
Yeah, I read that book too. I had my team read it a few years ago, and you're exactly right. But it's, again, like
It's both.
Yeah, exactly. So walk me through the first thing that you do with a new client. Like, is there an analysis, a questionnaire? Like, how do you get out of them, one, where their struggles are, but secondly, what they can start doing? Because I'm assuming each person has their own levels, or they're at different periods in their life with regards to their confidence.
Yeah, for sure. So when someone books a discovery call with me, oftentimes they've kind of followed me for a while, or perhaps they just, found me via Google, whatever it is. But I do have people, answer a questionnaire. And I always want to know kind of where they're at, what they believe that their biggest weakness is, and what they truly want. And one question I always ask people in the quick questionnaire is, how serious are you, from a 1 to 10? Because I always want to know. And I think that is really important, because I think most people, when they set up to make a change in their life, I want most people to say 10. I want most people to say an 11, really. I love the people who go 1 to 10 and they put in 12. I'm like, yeah, you're my people. Because you've got, you know what I mean? Because you've got to want it, right? You've got to want it. But I think most people are at the point where they know that they want something, but they just don't know how to get over that. Business and mindset are so key. So like, yeah, I say confidence and success, but it really has to do with mindset. Like, I don't care. I have so many clients from so many diverse backgrounds. Not everyone is here for business, but out of the business people, I mean, I have people who make $30,000 a year, and I have people who are executive VPs of billion-dollar companies. Like, I have across the board, men and women. But I think at the point in time where like business and mindset come together is because, when you're trying to get to the next level, like whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your business, whatever it is, it's like the number one determining factor is how fast are you going to get over the hurdle? How fast are you going to get over that mindset block? How fast are you going to go that like, okay, how do I find a way around this? How do I make this not about me? How do I, how does I step into this with the confidence that like, no matter what, I'm not going to quit. And so I think most people come to me like with the belief that they want something different, and they just are not confident enough in themselves that they are the person to do it. And once we kind of get past that, every single one of us are exactly the same, and that the people who have had the success are the people who are just like figure out a way and don't worry about what other people say, and know and trust that you 100% can do it. Like, I'm a big faith person, so I believe every single person was put on this planet with a purpose, and that purpose can be to be a stay-at-home mom or to fly to the moon, whatever it is. But like stepping into your purpose, I believe is a responsibility. And I don't think enough people use that as like knowing that it's a responsibility. Like, I think once you realize that like you have a purpose and that is your responsibility, then you got to step up and freaking do it. Like, treat it like a responsibility, not like, well, a maybe.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you've had clients I'm sure you've had some for a long period of time. What are some of the more advanced things? So someone gets the basics of confidence, they're feeling good, they're in the right mindset. What comes next after that?
Just keep taking the action, right? One thing that you asked was like, what book and what podcast and all the things. I think where a person really has a lot of growth is when a person goes from consuming to action.
Fist bump for that one.
Boom.
I talk about that a lot too. It's like you can get so overwhelmed with all the content, like even this podcast, even, you know what I mean? Like every episode, I'm giving actionable content. After a while, like you kind of know what to do. You need to start putting things into action, and that's going to take time and hard work. But it's not dissimilar to someone that is trying to, like, you can't read every fitness book in the world and be fit. You actually have to do the work. It's the same thing.
Totally. So the three things that I say in my business are decision, faith, and action. You cannot make, in my personal opinion, obviously, opinions are like assholes, everyone has one, but decision, faith, and action. Those are the three things that will change your life. If you're missing one, it's going to be real hard to have the success. You have to make fast decisions. You have to decide. You have to go all in. Faith, you have to know it's happening for you. You have to know that there's a greater purpose. You have to know that it is for you. You have to know that like even the biggest roadblock ever is like the thing that you need in this point. And when you believe that, it makes things a lot easier. And then action. You can't just decide and have faith and sit on your ass. You gotta take some action.
And it's lonely too. I mean,
Totally.
and it's supposed to be. So like this, I think the issue now a little bit is social media gives instant gratification on things, right? And
Amen.
I do this too. I'll post something. Like I did a big run and I posted it, and it's like, get a bunch of like, oh, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh yeah, that just kind of fuels you. It creates these endorphins to get you excited, and you want more of that. So because of that instant gratification, now that gets applied to everyday life. And the reality is everyday life, there is not instant gratification.
Yeah, bingo. You listen to a podcast, you read a book. You and I, we're jamming. Someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're like, oh my God, be Christina and Joe, like they're so great, blah, blah, blah. Like, and they get so jammed up and then they turn off the podcast and they stop doing the fucking thing. You and I, we're going to get off this podcast and we're going to do the thing. That's the reason why you have this success. You know, like people, like you can't look at someone else's Instagram. You can't look at someone else's podcast. You can't read someone else's book. There's a season for that. But you also then have to implement these changes. Like you have to implement a decision. You have to implement some faith. You have to implement taking a small action every single day, whether that was you reading that book for school for 15 seconds a day, you know, whether that's a gratitude practice, whether that's making sure that you jump on the Stairmaster every day, like whatever the hell it is, like you're not going to decision and faith losing 15 pounds or, you know, getting the business or playing in the event or dancing with the stars. You've got to have a combo of the three.
Yeah, no, that's right on. And another point I was going to bring up too, I don't know if you've seen this, and I'm sure there was a pivotal moment in your mind when this happened. But when I was starting the digital marketing company, this was 2010-ish. What I noticed is there's a lot of like so-called experts, right? And then in my mind, I was like, oh, how are these people experts? I would dig in a little bit more and I was like, wow, my background is actually deeper than these experts. So how are they an expert? And the reality is there's not this professional services delineation that you have today that someone's going to give you a PhD in confidence coaching, right? And I think there's a scared factor between someone who really has deep knowledge on something and them not having the confidence enough to call themselves an expert or to at least feel like they have as much knowledge as the so-called experts. So I guess my point in that is do not let that be impede your growth, because I can tell you that there's a lot of so-called experts out there and they're not experts, and then there are experts and they're not better or worse than you. So it's a matter of like just you having the faith in yourself, and don't let that word deter you at all. Let it actually prop you up.
I love that so much. I was actually having this exact conversation with one of I call them my old man money guys. So I play like golf like once a week with my old man money crew. They're all retired, but you know, we play for good money and all the things. And we were actually having a conversation, and this gentleman is worth more money than you can possibly imagine. And I told him one day, I said, I think, and this is the truth. And I want everyone to think about this. Think about some like person who's really successful and you've looked at them before and thought, God, I have got to be smarter than them. Like there's no possible way that dumbass is like more successful than I am. This guy I'm referring to is definitely not a dumbass, but his confidence and his cockiness, even though it's probably got him in trouble numerous times, and I will say the same thing about myself, is oftentimes what creates the success. And there is dumbasses in the world out there that you know, like whoever's listening to this, there is someone doing something that you want to do that you're probably much better at, but they have the confidence and taken the action to get where you want to be. And that's really the only thing that's stopping you. There is a ton of fucking social media people out there right now that like literally don't have a pot to piss in and like aren't making $1 in their business, but they act like they are. And then there's people like that you're like, oh my gosh, you actually do what? Like I actually had a woman recently sign up for me, and she's got like very few followers, but like little confidence, but she's extremely like 7-figure business. And I'm like, oh my God, if you stepped into your confidence, we could get you to 8-figure. You know what I mean? So like, don't think that someone is better than you. Like step into the confidence and know that like, that is the determining factor in my opinion. Like obviously do the research. You can't just like jump on the internet and be confident and not like, you know, have some backing, but step into your greatness. And when you step into your greatness, my God, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I know that's That is so funny you said that, because there are a ton of people and you're like, how did that person make money? Like what? And it's because they were oblivious.
Yes,
They were
totally.
oblivious to their faults. And all of a sudden, because they're oblivious, they're confident. And it's like, be oblivious. Like don't overthink it. And a lot of times when we get into trouble, we overthink things, and going back to the diet example, great example, that's a great analogy, is like, you can overthink every little ingredient, but the bottom line is like, get 90% of it, 80% of it right, and you're going to have a great outcome.
Love it.
So you recently posted something about Alice Cooper and something that you learned from him on
Did?
on Facebook, I believe.
Oh my God, I haven't used Facebook in 15 years, so
Maybe
you
it was Instagram. I'm not sure, but
about Alice Cooper, about the golf shoes.
A life lesson you learned from Alice Cooper.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was the situation happened like 15 years ago. That's the reason why I'm like,
Okay.
young player, look at you go all the way back. But no, he I think what I was referring to, I posted that a long time ago, but I remember playing golf with him. He was one of like the kindest people ever. And after our round, I was formerly with Callaway years and years ago, and the Callaway rep, Alice Cooper, myself, and like a couple other guys were playing, and the Callaway rep said to him, he's like, man, I just love your shoes. And they were like expensive ass, like leather Italian shoes. And Alice Cooper literally took those shoes off his feet and gave them to the Callaway rep and said, oh, here, they're yours. And in that moment, I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, like that is just like something I want to be remembered for in life. Like I will never forget that situation. I just thought, how cool is that an extremely successful person like that was just like, here's my shoes, no big deal. After I turned professional, I was sponsored by Adidas, and I probably gave away 10 pairs of shoes easily to young girls who said, hey, I love your shoes. And to me, like I was getting them for free at the time, but I always gave those shoes away. And I always thought to myself, I want to always be remembered as a person who used their success for a good reason and used their, notoriety or whatever it is. And I still to this day think that that's one of the greatest qualities. To me, it's just definitely like a love language when I see people being really good humans. And I am much less concerned about what you've done in life and much more concerned of who you are and like where your heart is. And I don't know why I posted it that day, but it was such a cool experience. And he just like from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna be that person. It was such badass.
That's a great story. I know we have to wrap up in a second because you have a call, but how can people find out more about you, Christina?
Yeah, I hang out mostly on Instagram, definitely not on Facebook, but at BChristina, BECHRISTINA, because I encourage every single person to be themselves. And I think if every single person was more authentically themselves, more being instead of doing, the world would be a much better place. I used to call, my handle used to be Golf Christina, and a lot of my identity came from golfing. And now I'm still being Christina when I'm on the golf course, when I'm Coach Christina, when I'm Wife Christina, when I'm Christina sitting on my ass. And I think that, a lot of my messages is, being authentically yourself, because that's exactly when you're going to have the most success and the most confidence and the highest vibration. So I'm B Christina on social media, on all platforms. My podcast, you can come find me there, the Decide It's Your Turn podcast, for everyone who's ready to decide it's their turn.
And what about your website? Because you have a nice website as well.
I do have a website, but you can't spell my last name, so it doesn't really. It's Christina Lecuyer. My name is Christina Lecuyer, but my last name is spelled Lecuyer. But if you come find me either on social media or Google Golf Christina or B Christina, it should pop up.
Awesome. Hey, it was truly a pleasure to talk with you today, Christina. I wish you the best of luck. You're crushing it. Hopefully I'll see you on the golf course one of these days. If you're ever out in Tahoe, let me know.
Yeah, Edgewood, man. One of my best scores in life is at Edgewood, 66.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm in the North Lake, but would love to to host you here. Actually, you can't see it right now, but I'm sitting on a golf course. So
I actually saw a golf cart drive by.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah, the sun's, North Star Mountain's behind me, so the sun's shining on it. You can't see too much, but yeah, you're more than welcome. But good luck with everything. Thank you so much for the conversation. Keep crushing it.
You as well. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, Joe.